Hello, my name is Gordon Colley. I'm with Driving Lessons Air. I'm here today just to introduce myself, and as part of that I really thought it'd be worthwhile talking briefly about the driving test and what you can expect when you turn up for your test on the day. Some of you may have already done a bit of research on this and know that the test lasts for 38 to 40 minutes. That is certainly true, but 10 minutes of the tests will be taken up with independent driving. What is independent driving? Well, that was introduced in October 2011, so it's a fairly recent thing, and it was designed to make the driving test, or part of the driving test anyway, a little bit more realistic, like driving will be after you've passed your test. That means when you're alone in the car, you will still be doing all of the things you're expected to do to be able to drive safely and progressively. There won't be anyone there to prompt you, like myself or another instructor or the examiner. You'll be doing it entirely on your own. So it's only fair, I think, that they try to test your ability to do this now, which is why they're doing it, of course. So the way the examiner will do this is, instead of giving you directions like he does for the rest of the test about turning the next junction left or at the roundabout, take the third exit, that kind of thing, he won't be saying that. What he'll do is he'll say, right, I'm about to give you, probably he's pulled you over at the time, he'll say, I'm about to start the independent driving part of the test. And he can instruct you in two different ways, or a combination of two different ways. One of these ways would be just to present you with a series of diagrams, usually up to 3, and each diagram will show a route in bold black, and it will ask you to follow this route, and you'll say, I'm going to turn left here, go along to the end of this road, turn right, take the second on the left, something like that, and he'll ask you to repeat that. There's usually only 3 things to remember at each particular diagram, or on each particular diagram, sorry. And once you've completed the first section of the diagram, he'll stop you again and give you the next diagram and ask you to follow some other set of directions that are shown on the diagram, and again, only 3 things you have to remember, so it's quite easy really. The other method might be he'll just say, okay, Gordon, say it was me, I'd like to pull over, we're going to start the independent part of the driving test. Okay, could you now follow the routes to the A77 bypass? So off you go and you follow the signs to the A77 bypass until he tells you otherwise. He might then, when you get there, he might say, no, I'd like you to follow the route that says Ayr or Kilmarnock or whatever the direction is he wants you to take. Or you might use a combination of both the diagrams and maybe the diagram to start with when you're in a suburban area to get you out onto a main road, and then once you're on the main road he might then say, okay, I'd like you to follow the signs to Ayr Town Centre, for example. So that's the way they'll do it. It's not a memory test, so don't be intimidated by the fact you might forget what he said, or forget which sign you're supposed to follow, or forget the route that was outlined on the diagram. You're free to ask for confirmation of the route, but what you can't do is ask for specific driving instruction, like which lane should I take, or should I stop here at the roundabout and look first, or is it okay to go now? You can't ask those kinds of questions. That's for you to determine, that's why you're being tested, okay? But there's nothing to fear, because any instructor worth their salt, of course myself, I will make sure that you can do all of this before you're test ready. Brings me to the subject of when are you test ready? Well, typically it takes around 45 to 52 hours for most people to be test ready. But that depends on you. Some people take a lot longer, some people take a lot less. But no instructor is really going to try and make you take extra lessons more than you need to in order to try and rip you off, if you want to put it that way, because they all want you to pass first time, because that's good for them. So it's unlikely that that's going to happen, but if you feel this could happen or is happening to you, you are free to complain about that particular instructor to the Driving Standards Agency, if you so wish. As I say, I doubt if many instructors would actually try to do this, because it's going to be pretty obvious. And if that happens, then you can also ask them for a mock test, or ask another instructor to give you a mock test, just to give you a gauge of where you are. And there shouldn't be any problem in getting this done. So they would conduct a mock test to make sure that you're test ready. But it's not worth going for the test too soon, because if you do and you fail, you've only yourself to blame, because it costs money, and let's face it, you'd be better off spending that money having some extra lessons to make sure that when you do go for the test you have a very high chance of passing. If you do that, then you certainly increase your chances overall of passing. You'll feel more confident. If you're confident, you'll be less nervous on the day. So the pressure of the test won't get to you to quite the same extent. So I think it's worthwhile making sure that you're ready and that you know you're ready and you feel confident. Okay, so once you're on the test, you'll be asked to pull over on probably up to 6 occasions. Usually when you're driving with an instructor, and certainly the case with me, I don't ask you to pull over that often unless we need to for certain reasons, or correction reasons, or whatever, or for a discussion about the next step. But in the driving test, you'll be pulled over in the space of an hour far more often than you're likely to have been done before. This is to ensure that you can pull over into convenient places, that is stop when required in convenient places, and also to move away safely from rest, either in normal straight roads or round a bend, or it could be in busy traffic, or it could be in a suburban area, or it could be pulling away at an angle from behind a parked vehicle, or on a hill, either uphill or downhill. The examiner wants to make sure that you are perfectly safe to move off and stop in varying road conditions, and that each time you do so, you take appropriate precautions like proper observations and you move away properly, signalling as appropriate, etc. During the test, you'll be checking your general awareness of traffic signs, your ability to react to situations well in advance, make sure that you're not braking too harshly, not accelerating too harshly. He wants to see you driving, as I said right at the beginning, safe and progressively. He wants to make sure that if you were driving his children, let's say, on the road, he'd be happy to let you do so. You want to make sure that he's not going to feel intimidated by you in any way. For example, he'd be driving home later in the day having done a series of tests. You might be driving around. He wants to know that when you're behind him or in front of you, you're not going to be a problem to him. He wants to feel generally happy with you. If you stall, by the way, on the test, don't worry about that, because stalling can happen. The important thing is getting going immediately, and don't just put the handbrake on just because you've stalled. It's usually best, usually it's in first gear anyway, so you stay in first gear, keep your foot down on the clutch, start the engine and move away as soon as possible, as long as it's safe to do so. Only put the handbrake on if you're on a hill, or there are other reasons why you need to put the handbrake on to stop the car rolling back, for example. Okay. So on the test you'll be driving around, he'll be keeping a close eye on your mirror, signal manoeuvre, position, speed, look, routine. You'll be making sure you do everything that's appropriate to make sure you have a safe drive. And by the time you've completed the test circuit, you'll be heading back for the test centre. You might recognise that you're getting close to it. If you know the area, you probably will. And the important thing to realise is the test is not over until you stop the car and the examiner says the test is over and asks you to switch the engine off, take your seatbelt off and make yourself comfortable while he goes through the final paperwork. Okay, so please bear that in mind and not relax just because you're approaching the test centre and think, oh, that's it, I can relax now. It's not the case. He'll be testing you right up to the point you stop. So beware of that feeling of, my God, it's all over and I'm there now. It's not till you get there. Okay. Finally, what should you do to prepare yourself for the test in other ways? Well, make sure you get a good night's sleep. Don't go out on a drinking session, and even if you're going out for soft drinks with your friends, it's good just to focus the night before on thinking about the test a little bit, but relax, don't get overly heated up about it. Arrive at the test centre in good time, make sure you've got both parts of your licence with you, the photo card and the paper counterpart. I will always make sure that you have that, and I'll ask to see it, because I've had cases where in the past when I just started out, people say, oh yeah, I've got them with me, don't worry about it. You get to the test centre and they haven't got them, and then you feel, well, they feel a bit of a jump, you feel a bit of a jump because you haven't made sure of it. So I always make sure that they've got them with them now. So I'll do that for you. Okay, thank you very much for listening, and whatever you do, safe driving.